top. That is the Chicago Board of Trade building from 1930. It was designed by the firm Halliburton and Root. It might look familiar to you as Wayne Enterprises from Batman Begins. That statue up at the top, that is Ceres, the Roman goddess of grain and agriculture. Ceres is on top of our Board of Trade because for most of our past we have traded in agricultural futures or in grain commodities. Ceres does not have a face. When the building was constructed, it was the tallest in the city of Chicago at the time. When interviewed, the artist said, "Who would see that?" A few decades later, he kind of ate his words. They interviewed him again. They were like, "Hey, it's not the tallest building anymore. People can just look over and be like, Ceres, you have no face." He said, no. I was just designing that statue in an Art Deco statue design style. People were like, Art Deco statue design style? He's like, think of an Academy Award. An Oscar is an Art Deco statue. Those don't have faces. People don't seem to mind quite so much. This portion of the Riverwalk over on the right, this is called River Line. It's new as of 2019, so even newer than the main branch portion. River Line seeks to recreate the natural landscape of this area of Illinois before we put these buildings on top of it. Straight in front of us, you can see a peachy kind of coral colored building. It has blue glass windows and a big crown lit up green at the top. That is 311 South Wacker. When 311 South Wacker first went up in 1990, that crown was lit by 1,800 super bright fluorescent light bulbs. We have since switched over to LED to be more mindful of the environment. We've also learned that we have to turn the bulbs down in brightness during certain bird migration seasons. You see, when migrating birds first came through back in 1990, they actually mistook that crown for the moon. They got super lost. We felt super bad. So now we know that the birds are coming through. We just turn the lights down and stay out of the entire situation. I believe the lights are actually turned down right now. Normally it is much brighter than that. Directly behind that, you have the granddaddy of them all. Tall, dark, and handsome. Tallest building in the city of Chicago. This is the Willis Tower. The Willis Tower, which is commonly referred to by its original name, which is the Sears Tower, clocks in at 1,451 feet tall, or 442 meters. This was the tallest building on the planet when it was completed in 1974. It remained the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years, until the completion of a pair of twin towers in Malaysia upseated. This was the tallest building in the United States until 2014 with the completion of One World Trade Center in New York City. Now I'm going to say something to all of you that has never ever gotten me a second date, and that is, I want to talk to you about skyscraper antenna. I think they're rad. I think they're totally bewitching. You see the two antennae on top of the Willis Tower. Although they are very tall, they're almost 30 stories tall. They actually don't get to count toward the building's official height. They are considered to be purely utilitarian. Counter that with the spike on top of the One World Trade Center. That is not called an antenna at all. That is called a spire. A spire is a decorative design choice. It is considered to be inherent to the building's overall design. Would not be One World Trade Center if the spire was not there. Therefore, it does get to count toward the building's official height. The fact of the matter is, the roof of the Willis Tower is 83 feet higher than the roof of One World Trade Center. So you know, they got us on a technicality. We definitely don't have an inferiority complex about it, if that is what you were thinking. As we come back around the map building, you'll be able to take a look up at the top of the Willis Tower one more time. And you will see four glass boxes jutting out into the sky up near the top. Those glass boxes, that is Sky Deck, the ledge, the observation tower up at the top of the Willis. Up on Sky Deck, you can step out onto a glass floor. You got glass walls on all three sides of you, and you can feel as though you are floating over 1,000 feet in the air above downtown Chicago. They often host yoga classes up on Sky Deck for people with a really warped sense of what is relaxing. 2 people throughout history have successfully scaled the outside of the Willis Tower bottom to top. First was an American man in the 1980s. He was wearing a homemade Spider-Man suit, of course, and he used suction cups to get up to the top. History calls him Spider Dan. Second was a Frenchman in the 1990s. He used nothing but his bare hands and toes. He wore no costume. The Willis Tower's overall design is what offsets the sway of the wind. You will notice that the Willis Tower is not one single column flying toward the sky, but rather a group of 9 columns bundled together that rise to various heights. Only 2 of the building's 9 columns reach its full height of 108 stories. It is rumored that the architects at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, led by the chief engineer, Dr. Fosler Kahn, they were playing with cigarettes when they came up with this design idea. They noticed that if you just stack one cigarette directly on top of another one, that'll bend or sway in the wind. However, if you group a few cigarettes together at the bottom and have the structure get slimmer as it rises toward the top, then you have a much more solid base to stand on. This technology is very simply called bundled columns, sometimes called bundled tubes, and it is also how the Burj Khalifa offsets the sway of the wind in Dubai. That being said, on a very, very windy day, the Willis Tower can still safely sway up to 18 inches in any direction. 18 inches is enough to slosh the water out of the toilet bowls, so I'm not really sure what's so safe about all of this. Not to drive the antenna point too far home, but for the record, the 2 antennae on top of the Willis Tower, just the antenna, are about the same height as the Black Rocks building over on the left-hand side of the boat. Underneath this building, we are looking at train tracks, passenger trains. The railroad companies, they own the land that their tracks are on. They also own the air above them, as far as the eye can see. That's the legalese, as far as the eye can see. When you wish to construct on top of that, as so many buildings in the city of Chicago have done, you actually have to make annual lease payments to the railroad companies for the air. That contract is called air rights. 2 Riverside Plaza was the first building in our city constructed on this contract. That was back in 1929, and we still construct on air rights contracts today. As we head back into Art Deco Canyon, this time the Civic Opera Building is on the right-hand side of the boat. The Civic Opera Building was also completed in 1929. It is the permanent home of the Lyric Opera Company, which is the 2nd largest opera company in the United States. The entire building is very purposefully and strategically facing west. It is shaped like a throne or an armchair, facing west, away from New York City. Because again, inferiority complex? I don't think so. We're just going to build an entire opera house that won't even look at you. I'm very often asked about the lettering on the side of this building. It's not spelled wrong. They just decided to spell it in Latin. The Latin alphabet does not contain the letter U. It's just for aesthetics. This lettering isn't even original to the building's design. It was added in the last 30 years. Next on the right, you have the most recently completed skyscraper on our tour. This is the Bank of America building from November of 2020. The Bank of America building was designed by Gatch Partners, which is the same firm that designed the sharp and pencil-shaped 150 North Riverside right across the water. The chief architect at Gatch Partners, Jim Gatch, has been quoted saying, "It is more important how a skyscraper touches the ground than how it touches the sky." And we definitely see that mentality at play in his waterfront designs. Because of the timing of this building, it also features pandemic-friendly technology. They have walk-through temperature scanners already built into the building, upgraded air filtration systems, antimicrobial cladding on all of the glass doors, as well as a smartphone app that will call an elevator to your desired floor without you having to touch a thing. Back over to 150 North Riverside, the sharp and pencil-shaped building. This building uses a very interesting technology to offset the sway of the wind. We talked about the bundled columns, bundled tubes technology of the Willis Tower. This building uses a technology called Inertial Slosh dampers, sometimes called tuned liquid slosh dampers. All the way up at the top of the building on the inside, there are 12 giant tanks holding 160,000 gallons of water. How it works is this: when the wind blows the building in one direction, the water sloshes in the other direction, keeping that building nice and straight upright. Works like a giant shock absorber. There are some buildings in the world that have a giant concrete pendulum, like a big piece of metal or stone that flows back and forth like a pendulum. That's the same technology, but they use water up at the top of the building. Straight ahead of us as we head back into Wolf Point, there is a construction site. They are putting up the third of the trio of Wolf Point Towers. Wolf Point West went up first. That's the teal building over to the left. It was completed in 2016. It is residential. Wolf Point East is the lighter blue building with the white trim over to the right. That was just completed in the middle of last summer, also residential. And now Wolf Point South is going up between the two. It'll be called the Salesforce Tower. It'll be the tallest of the 3 buildings and the only commercial of the 3 buildings. Interestingly, this land is owned by the Kennedy family, the family of President John F. Kennedy. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy, purchased this land along with Merchandise Mart back in 1945. The family sold Merchandise Mart in 1998, but they did maintain ownership of that piece of land there. Over on the right, you see a curved blue and green glass building. This is 333 Westwacker, or the Nuveen building. If you have a strong attention to detail, it is also Ferris Bueller's dad's office building. It's another great example of contextualism from the year 1983. The curve and the color of the building mimic the curve and the color of the river below. Underneath this building is new public art. This is called The People in Your Neighborhood. This was designed by local street artist Don't Fret. These are all real Chicagoans, CTA drivers, postal service workers, tamale vendors, bartenders, writers, etc. Another work of public art that we simply must discuss on our tour is called Art on the Mart. Art on the Mart is the world's largest display of projected public art. What we do is after the sun goes down, we take giant works of light and digital art and project them across the entire face of Merchandise Mart, which is 2.5 acres in size. This program just got started back in 2018. It's already been super popular with both residents and visitors alike. It's free for everyone to enjoy. As we come out from under this bridge, you'll see the projector system for Art on the Mart housed in this big gray box. This projector system used a digital laser mapping technology to map out the surface of the building so that no light ever shines into the windows of Merchandise Mart. This year's show is called Astrographics. It is presented in tandem with the Adler Planetarium. It is both actual pictures of space as well as art inspired by the galaxy. For the month of April, there are 2 shows every night. 2 shows every night. One at 8:30 p.m., one at 9 o'clock p.m. This portion of the Riverwalk is called The Jetty. You just type The Jetty into Google Maps and we'll bring you back here for Art on the Mart if you wish to do so. Coming up on the right, you see a highly reflective blue glass skyscraper. This one has channels cut into its face, creating more of those sky-high patios. This is 111 Westwacker. 111 Westwacker is a purely residential tower that was completed in 2014. It is designed in a style called sliced minimalism. Sliced minimalism is a next generation contemporary style. What does that mean? It means you should come back on this tour in 25 years, and it will be led by one of my children who will tell you how sliced minimalism fits into the American historical context of the 2010s, which we all have not finished making sense of just yet. Right after 111 Westwacker is 77 Westwacker. That is this white granite and reflective glass building with the triangle roof. Makes it look like a Greek or a Roman temple. 77 Westwacker was completed in 1992, designed by Spanish architect Ricardo Bofill. This was the world headquarters for United Airlines until United Airlines moved into the Willis Tower in 2012. Right after 77 Westwacker is my favorite building of the tour, and that is the short and stout 55 Westwacker. I call him the Danny DeVito of the skyline. Short, stout, standing between 2 supermodels. 55 Westwacker is designed in a style called brutalism. If you're not sure what emotion brutalism is meant to convey, I will tell you, lots of government buildings were designed in this style during the Cold War era. Brutalism is meant to convey the moral high ground. The term brutalism actually comes from the French term béton brut, which means raw concrete. Raw exposed concrete is the hallmark of the brutalism design more than anything else. That building was constructed to be the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois headquarters. They've moved out. Today it's commercial office space and apartments. You can live in that building if you wanted to do so. Way ahead in the distance, you can see the golden nub on top of an Art Deco style building. If you saw it in the daytime, you see that it is forest green in color. This green and gold building is always a favorite on our skyline. That is the Carbide and Carbon building. The Carbide and Carbon building was completed in 1929, designed by the Burnham Brothers firm, 2 sons of World's Fair chief architect Daniel Burnham. They were working on this bad boy at the height of Prohibition, or the era in the United States when alcohol was illegal. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when I am told that I cannot have something, I think about that thing a lot. We suspect that the Burnham Brothers were thinking a lot about a champagne bottle when they designed the Carbide and Carbon building. That golden top is surfaced with gold leaf that is roughly 1/5000th of an inch thick. That is half the thickness of ceramic rock. Super thin. A little bit closer to us on the right, you see a beige colored, very ornate building. It has two rectangular pieces and then a big dome up at the top. That is the Jewelers Building from 1927. Back in its heyday, it was a hotbed of both jewelry merchants and organized crime. Hard to have one without the other in Chicago in the 1920s. For that reason, the Jewelers Building was originally outfitted with a car lift, or an elevator for your car, in order to facilitate the safe transfer of both jewels and people. The dome portion was home to a restaurant called the Stratosphere Club. The Stratosphere Club is commonly rumored to have been run by Al Capone. However, that's definitely a rumor because the club opened in 1937. Al Capone was imprisoned for tax evasion in 1931. The Jewelers Building is also very famous for having been featured in the hit Chicago documentary Transformers, Dark of the Moon. Tall, skinny white tower, looks like a rocket ship. This is the Mather Tower from 1923. It was home to the Mather Stock Car Company. The CEO, Alonzo Mather, he was a descendant of Cotton Mather, the Puritan responsible for the sale of witch trials for a small world. 2 doors down, limestone structure with the cupola. That's the London Guarantee and Accident Building from 1928. Today it's home to the London House Hotel. They added on that glass addition later on. The cupola up at the top, when it was first completed, people were like, oh, that's inspired by a monument at the Acropolis, of course. And the architects were like, we were very inspired by the city of Stockholm's town hall. Between the 2 towers of the Wrigley Building over on the left, you can see an onion-shaped dome lit up purple. You'll have a better view of that dome and the building when you come back around the Wrigley. That dome is on top of the Intercontinental Hotel. The Intercontinental Hotel was originally constructed as the Shriners Athletic Association, and that dome was a marketing tactic. The Shriners, they said, come, join our gym. We even have a place for you to land your blimp. You see, the Shriners thought that in the future, all of us would be flying around town by our personal blimp, and that onion-shaped dome is where it just tires up on your way to work out. Unfortunately for the Shriners, not long after that building went up, the Hindenburg disaster went down. No blimps ever tired up an onion-shaped dome. Coming up, right after the Wrigley Building on our left, is an example of Gothic Revival design. Gothic Revival harkens back to medieval times. It's often associated with churches and cathedrals. This is not a church or a cathedral. This is the Chicago Tribune Tower. The Chicago Tribune Tower was completed in 1925, designed by a pair of New York City architects named Howells and Hood. Howells and Hood responded to the Chicago Tribune's call for the most beautiful office building in the entire world. It was a contest, and they won. The Chicago Tribune newspaper staff worked in this building from 1925 until 2018. Staff moved out 3 years ago after the building was sold to be converted into luxury condominiums. The condo conversion is almost complete. This is kind of the first time that I've seen lights on in this building in many, many months. This is not the only project planned here, though. They're also adding a super tall skyscraper to the eastern portion of the property. It's currently just called Tribune Tower East. It was designed by Adrian Smith and his partner Gordon Gill, and when it is complete, it'll be the new second tallest building in the city of Chicago. Just below that, right on the river's edge, you can see right through the Chicago Flagship Apple Store. The Chicago Flagship Apple Store was completed in 2017. That is low iron, load-bearing glass in those walls, which along with the 4 marble columns inside support a super lightweight carbon fiber roof. Ahead on the left, you can see the rainbow peacock shining up at the top of the Chicago NBC Tower. This building is super significant on our skyline because this is where we used to film Jerry Springer. This building might remind you of Art Deco. We got vertical racing stripes, limestone face. This style's called Eco Deco. You see, in the late 80s, early 90s, we started to harp on those Art Deco design ideas. Added some contemporary ones as well. This building was completed in 1989, designed by Adrian Smith. For this design, he was greatly influenced by the architect Raymond Hood. Raymond Hood was half of the team behind the Chicago Tribune Tower. Raymond Hood also designed 30 Rockefeller Plaza. You can see elements of both of those buildings at play in Smith's design here. Back over on the right, between the white box building and the brown box building with that yellow line, I've looked on the internet. I've scoured the internet and I can't figure out why they have that yellow line. To be determined. Anyway, back in there, you see some funky curving white balconies. These curving white balconies are on the face of Aqua Tower. Aqua Tower was completed in 2010, designed by Studio Gang. The building is a great example of why Studio Gang is so famous for the idealistic community building that they do in their work. They like to try to bring people together. You see, each of those balconies is entirely mathematically unique. No two of them are the same. What does this do? This allows you to lean over and talk to your upstairs and downstairs neighbors. Tiny little people leaning around and talking to their friends are featured in all of the renderings of the building. Have I ever seen it in real life? Unfortunately not. Speaking of Studio Gang, we have a giant, near complete work in progress coming up on the right-hand side. 3 curving blue and green glass columns come together to create the St. Regis, formerly known as Vista Tower. The St. Regis is currently the 3rd tallest building in the city of Chicago. It's our city's 3rd tallest right now. However, it is the tallest building in the entire world designed by a woman. The architect behind this building, her name is Jeannie Gang. She is the chief architect at Studio Gang, meaning she also designed Aqua Tower. The St. Regis will be mixed-use hotel and residential. It'll be home to the 5-star luxury Chicago St. Regis Hotel, opening up sometime in the 3rd quarter of 2021. It'll also be home to the residences at the St. Regis. These are some of the tallest and most expensive units in our city. The penthouse of the middle column, the top 2 floors of that center column, has already sold as 1 unit for $18.5 million. That is the 5th most expensive home sale in all of Chicago's history. If you take a look up near the top of the tallest of the 3 columns, you can see that the 83rd floor is a little bit wider and a heck of a lot more open than the rest. Believe me or don't, that 83rd floor is actually complete. It will remain open like that until the end of time. It will serve as a blow-through floor. The idea is that the wind will blow right through that 83rd floor, rather than being absorbed by the core of the building, allowing for any movement up at the top. That is how Jeannie Gang plans to offset the sway of the wind. If that for some reason is not enough, she has also outfitted the building with tuned liquid slosh dampers, just like the sharpened pencil-shaped building. However, instead of 160,000 gallons, hers can hold 400,000 gallons of water. Coming up on the left, you see a curved black glass building. Some people say it looks like a fidget spinner. Some people say it looks like a flask. Kind of depends on which side of the millennium you were born. This is Lake Point Tower. Lake Point Tower was completed in 1968. At that time, it was the tallest purely residential building in the entire world. It was designed by 2 students of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Their names were George Schipperin and John Heinrich. They took that idea of the stark black box modernist style building and they added their own twist, which is the curving facade, which maximizes waterfront views for all of the residents inside. You will notice this is the only building in downtown Chicago over on the east side of Lakeshore Drive. That is because Chicago has a public waterfront ordinance. All of the land along Lake Michigan, all of these beaches and parks, is meant to be forever open, free, and clear of private development for everyone to enjoy. How did they get away with it? This river was always super industrial. This was an industrial river. Docking and harbor facilities were allowed to be and needed to be constructed at the mouth of the river. However, in 1964, a set of lakefront construction guidelines was published that did not stipulate what kind of construction could take place at the mouth of the river. That was their loophole. Lake Point Tower was constructed legally. However, after the building went up, we did promptly publish a new set of lakefront construction guidelines that made it abundantly clear that any construction in this spot had to be industrial. Many famous Chicagoans have lived at Lake Point Tower over the years, including Sammy Sosa, Scottie Pippen, Alice Cooper, Kurt Russell, and Goldie Hawn. Not Oprah. Oprah did not live here. Oprah lived at Water Tower Place over on the Magnificent Mile. Here we have a great view of the shining beacon of Navy Pier, which is of course the Centennial Ferris wheel. The Centennial Ferris wheel was new in 2016 to celebrate 100 years of Navy Pier. I like to get a new Ferris wheel about every 25 years just to stay abreast of Ferris wheel technology, as one does. But we always keep one here to celebrate the fact that we invented them. The world's very first Ferris wheel debuted at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition right here in Chicago, Illinois. This Ferris wheel that we see today is 196 feet tall. The original was 264. It was enormous. Every car on the original Ferris wheel was a converted Pullman train car and could fit 60 people. 60. People saw it, they were like, no thanks. Yes, it's 1893. We'd rather die here on the ground. So George Ferris, the designer, and his wife had to go up first, wave a little hanky, be like, we're fine. And then it became one of the most popular attractions at the fair. I think this is helped a lot by the fact that there was a bar in every cabin. Over on the right, this blue house-looking structure. It's the Marine Safety Center. It's owned by the city. It's where we keep the Coast Guard and the Fire Department rescue boats. Just beyond that, where you see the gray watchtower and all those lights, that is the Chicago Harbor Lock. That lock system is how we match boats up to the height of Lake Michigan or down to the height of the Chicago River. Right now, Lake Michigan is about 6 feet higher than the Chicago River. This lock system is very important as it keeps our entire city from flooding. This is the second busiest recreational lock in the country. I don't know where the first busiest is, but I'm sure we wish we could crush them. It is here at the Chicago Harbor Lock that the captain is going to spin the boat so you have a beautiful view of the downtown skyline after dark. I'm going to hop off the microphone so you can take as many photos as you want, drink it all in, use the restroom if you need to do so, because there won't be a public restroom nearby our dock when we get back. I'll be back on the microphone in about 3 or 4 minutes, finish up some last minute business before we head back into our dock.
said it one time before, well actually many times before, and I'll say it again. Chicago is one beautiful city. One of the most loveliest cities we have in this country. Despite what you see and hear in the news, I mean, Chicago's gorgeous. In my opinion, the best city in the Midwest. Alright gang, the tour's wrapping up. We're about to dock. Thank you for joining us. Do not forget to share, like, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the tour. I picked late evening at night so you can see the city lights. And the video just doesn't do it any justice. It's absolutely gorgeous out here. Alright gang, Spider out.